Vakradunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. When Raja Parikshita in Srimad Bhagavatam becomes the king, he doesn't want there to be any imperfection in his kingdom. And it's not a small kingdom, this is Bharat Varsha. So land after land after land is all under Bharat. And so he travels throughout his kingdom that he's just been given to see if there's any imperfection, any meanness. And he comes across a very famous scene. It's a sad scene, but a famous scene, where there's a person dressed up in black with a cane, and he's beating a bull. And beating hard. 3 legs are already broken. The 4th leg is being broken. And beside this bull is a cow that is weeping, seeing such meanness, such cruelty. And when Raja Parikshita gets there, he immediately stops that man from beating this bull and says, "I'll tend to you." And he begins a dialogue with that bull and asks that bull, "Is this man who's beating you the cause for your sorrow?" And that bull laughs. This bull that's legs are being broken laughs and says, "Raja, your question is funny. Your question is illogical." And Raja Parikshita is taken aback by this. How? It's laughable because you think someone else can cause me sorrow. It's laughable that you think anyone can cause anyone sorrow. And if you think deeply about this statement, the reverse holds true also. It's laughable to think that anyone can cause you joy. That anything can cause you joy. That man dressed in black is the spirit of Kali, the spirit of selfishness. That bull is dharma, or responsibility. And that cow is earth. That cow is us, the people of earth. Self-development begins with self-reflection. And that's what this bull is teaching us. Those who are responsible are constantly reflecting and not blaming, not being extra. So self-development begins with self-reflection. And if you study anyone who's been successful in the secular world, that's what they've done. 2 of the greatest inventions in technology happened in 2007 and then 2010. What came out? The iPhone and the iPad. You know what's fascinating about that? Steve Jobs never let his kids have iPhones or iPads. Isn't that fascinating? Every kid has an iPhone and an iPad, but not Steve Jobs' kids when he was alive. He was reflecting on the lack of user-friendliness with technology. And he made it very user-friendly, correct? Technological development happened. In a sacred sense, for those who are reflective, one comes to realize one maybe is more selfish than one thinks. One is more confused than one thinks. I'll give you an example of this. When you go to a hotel, specifically to the bathroom, what do you find in a hotel bathroom that you usually don't find in your own home bathroom? What do you see? A clean shower. Special creams. You also tend to find that makeup mirror, correct? That really amplifies your reflection. So what do people do as soon as they see that makeup mirror? Put a towel on it. Because if you look too closely, you'll see where you shaved, or a cut, or a wrinkle, correct? That's why we don't like to look so closely. And that's just with our face. Our personalities we run away from much more. And this is why we are trying to follow the life and teachings and work of Puja Swami Vivekananda. He is an ideal icon of self-reflection leading to self-development. And how we know this is that he grew up as an atheist. And not a modern-day atheist. I was sharing that modern-day atheists are just lazy people. They're just lazy in their thinking. So they like that label. But he wasn't lazy. He tried to find Bhagavan hard and smart. And so he was an atheist. But through Bhagavan's kripa, through the grace of God, he came in contact with Sri Ramakrishna. And one Narendranath Datta actually lived up to his name and became truly Narendranath. He became Swami Vivekananda. And I'll tell you a short episode in his life to make sure that this is clear. He was one of the oldest siblings in his family, and his father had passed away when he was young. So he became responsible for the upkeep of his family. And he loved Sri Ramakrishna also. And he wanted to be with Sri Ramakrishna always. And so one day, in a very sorrowful mood, he came to Sri Ramakrishna and said, I love you and I want to be with you, but I have to look after my family. And Sri Ramakrishna said, go ask the Divine Mother. Go ask Kali Mata for what you need. And so he's standing in front of Kali Mata, hands folded, and he's praying to her. And instead of money coming out of his mouth, what word comes out? Bhakti. He went in there going to pray for money, but what actually came out was bhakti. Love. And when he came back to Sri Ramakrishna was laughing. What did you ask for? And he looked down and said, bhakti. And he said, go ask your mother what you really want, what you really need. And he went in there again with money on his mind, but really what came out of his mouth again? Bhakti. And that's when he really knew that he needs to be with Sri Ramakrishna. And what's so beautiful about this episode is that Swami Vivekananda's family was looked after in a financial sense, in a societal sense also. He loved Sri Ramakrishna and he loves all of us. When he was 38 years old, how many of you are under 40 years old by show of hands? Under 40. Biologically, not in all, we're all under 40. Okay? When he was 38, he was talking to one of his disciples and said he knew that his body was going to die. His body died when he was 39. He told his disciple, I've done as much work in these 38 years as the next person will do in 1,500 years. In 38 years, he did the work of another person, a person like me, in 1,500 years. One person acted like 40 people. And we still question the presence of Bhagavan with many hands and many heads. And right in front of us. Such people existed, such people exist. Which is why we're studying Puja Swami Vivekananda. And we're packaging his life and teachings and work through the title of Being Your Best. You only live once. Being your best, you only live once. And this word best gets floated around a lot. So we defined best very specifically. Best is what? Giving the most. What is best? Giving the most. Think about it athletically. If you have a personal best, haven't you given your most? As an example. So being your best is giving the most. And when we give the most, we start to give up limits. We start to give up dependency. And that which has no limits, in Sanskrit we call Brahman. And Brahman is of the nature of Ananda, or joy. So when we start to give the most, we start to take down selfishness, we start to be happy. But to be able to give the most, you have to understand the second part of this title, which is you only live once. What is the acronym for you only live once? YOLO. Our high school students in Niagara Falls, like all high school students, are smart. So they changed the word or phrase YOLO to YOLUM. What does YOLUM stand for? You only live until moksha. Because you don't only live once. I'll die and I'll come back again. But moksha is really the only part. That's where the matter ends. You only live once. The key word there is live. And live definitively means making the most. Best is giving the most. Live is making the most. And in making the most, what we studied 3 teachings of Puja Swami Vivekananda. And the summary teaching was, we should always learn. Puja Swami Vivekananda has taught us to always learn in every experience. And if I can be even more specific, like the way some of you are taking notes now during this discourse, or when we had athletics and you pointed out, you learned this, and you learned this, and you learned this. Every day before you go to sleep, in a nice notebook, you should write down what you learned that day. And not about math, and not about investing, but learned about living. Call it a reflection guide. It's your own reflections. So always learn. What was next? Always exercise. Always exercise. The 2 heaviest countries in the world are in North America. And that's a great demand on society, isn't it? When people are physically unwell, it becomes a demand on the whole society. When Shashiji and I went to the ashram to study, part of our requirement was that you have to be in good health for 2 years. You have to have an MD verify that or project that. Because if we go to the ashram and become unwell, we become a liability to the ashram, no? So always exercise. Exercise the body, exercise the mind. More specifically, every day we should sweat for 30 minutes. Not I do yogasana and you do shavasana for 25 minutes. Or you do hot yoga, correct? It's your own, efforts that created that. See, it's about making the most. You're making the most of your equipment. And if you are healthy, you can give more, no? Those get connected. And number 3, so always learn, always exercise. And number 3 was always commit. To follow through with your promises. Follow through with your decisions. Follow through with your responsibilities. Puja Swami Tejamayananda once told me that 60% of his time goes in follow-up. In just following up administratively with coordinators. Now, if he's such a great teacher, shouldn't we be helping for him not to have to follow up with us? Commit. And again, I'm giving you really tactile ways to do this. You should always finish your food. Any food you put on your plate, you should finish it. Anything that goes in your glass, you should finish that. My parents taught me that at a young age. They told my sisters and I, anything you choose to put on your plate, you have to finish that. Until now, I still remember, and I'll tell you a harsh experience, but it worked. You're all familiar with the cereal Apple Jacks. Yes? So I had this bright idea that Apple Jacks is a good cereal. It'll taste even better with apple juice. So I made myself a nice bowl of Apple Jacks. This is going to be great. I'm a smart person. Put in that apple juice, which is also great. It doesn't work at all. But I had to sit there and eat all of those Apple Jacks, which is why 30 years later I still haven't eaten Apple Jacks. But the point is, such experiences teach you to slowly commit. If you can commit with food, you can start committing with classes, as an example, or appointments. This is what we have studied so far. This is understanding you only live once. This is making the most. With this in place, we can go back to being your best, which is about giving the most. In our ashrams at Sandipani, when I was studying there, and our building is called Vivekalaya. And so it's an L-shaped building, and down the stairwell there's this notice board. And for 2 years, there was no notice there at all. Why did they have a notice board? Nothing goes on there. But in the last week, before the course was to end, there was a notice there that said, "We're happy that you lived here. Now get out." Essentially, it said you have to vacate your room within 3 days. And when that's the only notice and you've made this home, it hurts, right? This is my home and you're asking me to leave. But it's a very profound notice that you were able to practice in a controlled environment. It's hyper-controlled. You know where you're going to eat and who's going to be next to you. But once you end up at the Mumbai airport, the lack of control begins, correct? Once you check your bank status, you interact with family, it's quite uncontrolled. So you see, it's not just about making the most, it's about giving the most. It is from going to a controlled environment to an uncontrolled environment. And so we're clear about this. It is about living and working with people. What's the most difficult part about your workplace? Is it the work? It's the people, isn't it? Why do you run away from going home? Is it the bathtub? Is it your bed? It's the people. I do so many classes virtually. The technology is easy to use, but it's the other people who don't know how to use the technology that makes it difficult. So giving the most is about living and working with people like Puja Swami Vivekananda did, like our Puja Swami Chinmaya did. I have many gurus in my life. One of them is my wife. Sheila is a guru of mine because she can tell me things in a positive and negative way that nobody else can tell me. And a guru is someone who shows you what you can't see, correct? All of the married people, correct? So you see, my point here is that living with Sheila is the best, but it's also the hardest because of my ego. Not because of her, but it's because of my ego. And no one else can do that. Living with you is not going to be as hard. But when that level of family comes in, a spouse, children, grandchildren, that is about giving the most. So I'll share with you some of Puja Swami Vivekananda's teachings and how we can use this. Okay? Here's the next quote. If you can write it, good. If you can't, this is being recorded. Each work has to pass through these stages. Work means you're giving to other people, you're living with other people. Ridicule, opposition, and then acceptance. Those who think ahead of their time are sure to be misunderstood. Each work has to pass through these stages. What was the first stage? Ridicule. Then? Opposition. And finally? Acceptance. Those who think ahead of their time are sure to be misunderstood. Name some people you know historically or even now who have thought ahead of their time. Steve Jobs, Gandhiji, Abdul Kalam, Abraham Lincoln, Elon Musk. So politically, technologically, and spiritually, these people, musically for sure. John Lennon was assassinated, no? Bob Marley was assassinated also. These are people who are revolutionary when it comes to music and what that music represents. What a true statement that Puja Swami Vivekananda has shared. So what does this mean to us? As you're going about giving the most, giving your resources, your time, your effort, your knowledge, your patience, your love, a few people will understand you. A few people will not understand you. And most people will misunderstand you. Correct? Most people will misunderstand you. And part of that is because we are not clear about understanding ourselves. If you're clear about understanding yourself, it's much harder for people to push you, correct? Even physically. If I'm balanced, it's harder for you to push me down. But if I'm imbalanced physically, it's easy for you to knock me over. Here, Puja Swami Vivekananda is sharing is, to be your best, you have to know who you are. If you don't know who you are, how will you know what your best is? And that happens so much in family dynamics, especially between generations. One generation says, you're not trying your best, isn't it? But if you go deeper into that statement, really it's because if that's true, they don't know who they are. It's easy to understand physically. Suppose we're working out together and we're doing chest press. We're lifting weights with our arms. And he says to me, you can do 3 more, but really who knows how many I can do? Me. It's my arms, my muscles, my heart. He can infer, but finally it's me. So to know what your best is, you have to know who you are. Now that's easy, right? We all know who we are. For all of the people applying to different jobs, different universities, there's an application form. Part 1 of your application form is describe your body. How old are you? How tall are you? What gender are you? What's part 2? Describe your mind. Where did you go to school? What countries have you traveled to? Part 3, tell us about your intellect. Who did you vote for? If you can go to an island, what book would you read? We are not so clear even about our mind, leave alone our intellect. So we just don't know what our best is. So I shall share with you how to know who you are. Catalysts to knowing who you are. Number 1, be around people who know who they are or are trying to know who they are. If you ask me to drive to downtown Boston, I have no idea how to get there. And if you follow me, you're also not going to get there. But if someone here has been living in Boston for decades, you know how to get there, follow them. So think, who are the people that you revolve around? Who are your friends? When Ratnakara doesn't have very solid friends, he continues to be a thief. His friend becomes Narada Muni, he becomes Valmiki Ji. The influence of a friends, someone who knows himself, someone who doesn't know himself. So be around people trying to know who they are. Perhaps the greatest gift that our Gurudev has given to humanity is community. All of the people who grew up in Bharat, you didn't grow up in a home, correct? You grew up in a compound, in a village. There is a lot of community where you grew up. Many parents, many cousins. When I grew up in Niagara Falls, I had 40 blood relatives in Niagara Falls. I felt like our house was like in that show Full House, where they have 3 kind of fathers. That was like our home. Chachas and mamas and fufajis and buajis, all of those people were around. Now here we live farther and farther away, correct? Even in our own cities, farther and farther apart. Space-wise, we have acres between homes. We become more and more isolated. It's important to have the right community. And I think this is a beautiful picture of that. So many generations in this room right now. People trying to know who they are. It becomes a catalyst for each other. Number 2, we're trying to figure out who we are. Now, if you leave this community, you go to school, you go to work, maybe the people there are not interested in knowing who they are. So does that mean we should be confused? You can still read the words about people who figured out who they were. Like Mohandas Karmachand Gandhi, who began as an attorney in South Africa and became that person who, when he entered the Sabha in Britain, and everyone is suited, and everyone is not to stand up, he shows up in his dhoti and angavastra, and everyone stands up for this small old man. He didn't know who he was, but he figured it out. I'm talking about Narendranath Datta. He was an atheist. He figured himself out also. Sri Ramana, Bruce Wayne, Neo, Poe the Dragon Warrior. You can go on and on and on. Read about them. Find the right role models. And you too will come to know more about who you are. And if you know who you are, you will know what is your best. So the main message, if I can put this into 2 words from this quote, is always remember. When you begin working, when you have that altar, when you have that purpose, the world will ridicule you or oppose you. But if you keep remembering why you're working, why you're trying to give the most, if you remember, you will not fall. But if you forget, obviously we're going to fall. Keep remembering why you got married. Keep remembering why you're in university. Keep remembering, especially in a city where there's a lot of snow, on Sunday mornings, when it's hard to leave your home, you have to shovel, it's cold in here. Remember the smiles of all of the people during class, post-class. That remembrance makes such a difference. You see so many movies where people who travel for corporate work, they keep a picture of their spouse, of their child. Sheila keeps FaceTiming me on a regular basis saying, this is what you're missing. To remember. Abraham Lincoln is a great example of someone who lived like this. He was born in, where was he born? Kentucky. Even today people don't know where Kentucky is. And he shifted to Springfield, Illinois. You must go to Springfield, Illinois to see his library, to see his museum. I go to Springfield every year. I go there to teach just so I can go there. And this tall white man identified with all humans and fought 2 million people died. In America, the population was not a lot then. And it was put on him. People threatened him. It's because of you that these millions of people are dying. But he always remembered that these are the costs that need to be incurred for greater good. Okay? Always remember. Now I've given you 4 always is. What was the first always? Always? Learn. Always? Exercise. Always? And commit. I was going to say admit. That's also good. And always? Remember. Here's another quote for you. As you're going about sharing, what else is going to happen? All condemnation of others really condemns ourselves. Adjust the microcosm which is in your power to do, and the microcosm will adjust itself for you. I'll read that out again. All condemnation of others really condemns who? Ourselves. Adjust the microcosm which is in your power to do. You can adjust yourself. And the macrocosm will adjust itself for you. As we go about our work, as we go about living, we sometimes become distracted in why we're in university, in why we're serving. And in that distraction, instead of growing better, we grow bitter. This person said this to me, this person didn't say this to me, these people didn't acknowledge me. Those are all distractions. Is that why you're doing this? Do we raise kids just for them to become like us? Is that why we chose to have families? See, we get distracted. And instead of expanding, we start to shrink. And in Ishavasya Upanishad, the Rishi there says you must never shrink. For that person who knows all are of the nature of Bhagavan, there's no shrinkage, there's only expansion. Once circles of love keep on growing. So some more on this. A distracted person grows shallow. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was invited to speak at an all-girls school, high school, at a diversity conference. So an auditorium like this, 300 people are there, high school students, their parents, their administrators, and they're all chatting. Mostly girls, but some boys from other schools were invited too. I walk in through that door, and all of the people chatting became quiet and just stared. Just every step I took. Is he going to stand there? Is he going to stand there? Where is he going to stand? Who is he? What's he doing at this all-girls school? And then someone introduced me, and I came to the podium, and I told them, I said, even though none of you have said anything, every one of you is doing what right now? Judging me. Isn't it? Not a single word was said about me, but every one of them was judging me. And what were they judging about me? My gender. Did I choose my gender? My skin color. Did I choose my skin color? My clothes, I did choose them, but who cares? See, if you're distracted, you grow into being shallow. Here's where Acharya Shankara has a most wonderful text called Bhaja Govinda. And I'll extrapolate or expand what that word bhaja means. When you hear the word bhaja, what do you think of? What do you think of? Shout it out. Bhajan, you think of bhajan. Very good. What else do you think of? Noise. Singing. Instruments. Correct? Bhaja actually has 6 meanings, each deeper than the next. And the initial meaning of bhaja is to sing. Now there's many artists in the world who sing, not for the art, but why do they sing? For money and popularity. Katy Perry became the first person in history to have 100 million followers on Twitter. 100 million people want to know what shampoo she used for her dog. And on and on and on. Sing. Sometimes we sing too, even in such a setting, but we sing to make sure that other people are hearing me, seeing me. Look, I got to be on stage and I didn't get to be on stage. I'm not picking on anyone. Some people get distracted, yes? So deeper than to sing is to seek. To seek. Where I'm not just singing with my mouth, but my thoughts are following also. What am I singing about? So more of you is being given, no? Deeper than to seek is to serve. Bhaja also means to serve. The difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is fear. I know you have a problem, and I care, but I'm looking after myself first. Sympathy. Fear. Empathy is I know you have a problem, and I care, and I will work for you the way I work for myself. It's not just about thinking anymore. It's about doing. To serve. Deeper than that, to worship. To worship. To serve the New England Patriots, you watch them on TV, correct? To worship the New England Patriots, what do? Waste your money going to the game. It's not just about, I'll change the word. What's the English word for sevika or sevaka? What's the English word? See, volunteers, I know we were saying that, but it's not a very right word for sevika or sevaka, right? To serve is like volunteer, but to worship, you don't do it because you're volunteering. You do this because this is an expression of who you are. You're not doing it for any reciprocity. To worship. Deeper than that. Think we went from singing to seeking. Deeper than that is to serve. Deeper than that is to worship. Deeper than that is to, what's next after worshiping?
Surrendering.
Love. Deeper than worshiping is loving. Who do you love the most? We love ourselves the most. It's unfortunate we also worship ourselves. We love ourselves the most. We do everything for ourselves. We forgive ourselves unconditionally. Someone in your home does something wrong, they don't get food. You do something wrong, you still eat, correct? Unconditionally, we love ourselves. To love, where you don't even feel that separation between you and whatever you're loving. But there's still some separation, which is why the deepest, the fulfillment of bhaja, the fulfillment of giving the most, is being. Bhaja finally means to be. Where did Meera go at the end of her life? She was being Bhagavan Krishna. There was no more Meera. Where did Acharya Shankara go at the end of his life? To the Himalayas. There was no more Acharya Shankara. It's not even loving, it's being. But in all of this, it's about us adjusting ourselves. It is not about the other person. It is not about the other persons. People tend to have a political agenda, which is to change the world, but not change oneself. But someone with a sacred agenda is only interested in changing themselves. And what naturally happens? The world changes too. If I fell asleep while I'm speaking right now, the tendency would be for you to fall asleep too, correct? And if someone is enjoying so much and smiling and so on and so forth, then the tendency is for you to be like that too. When we see an infant smile, you can't help but smiling. If you go to a funeral and you don't know that person, but everyone else is crying, there's a tendency for us to cry too. bhaja, this deepening of singing to becoming, put in very Vedantic terms is, when you engage in your dharma, it leads you to swadharma. Dharma is what is designed for you. Swadharma is designed for all of us. Swadharma is joy. Everyone has the same swadharma, which is to experience joy, to be joyous. But how do you get there? Dharma. A wife's dharma is different than her husband's, and a child's dharma, and a teacher's dharma, and a student's dharma, and a Canadian's dharma, and an American dharma. It's all different. As long as it's taking you to swadharma, it is dharma. So now I'm going to change the words to, when you start being your best, finally you will be the best. The best is Bhagwan. The best is Ananda. But if you can't be your best, you can never become the best. How many the bests are there? One. Advaita. In the world, how many the bests are there? A whole lot. There's a running the best, and a South Indian coffee maker the best, and a dokla maker the best, and that seat's the best, and that car's the best. But when it comes to Ananda, which is the deepest being, there's only the best. And how did you get there? By being your best. So here's your fifth always. Your fifth always is always lead. Always lead. I was invited to speak at a women's conference on leading with courage. Leading with courage. And this was a very posh gathering. A lot of patting oneself on the back. And I spoke for a short period of time, and I shared with everyone that a leader doesn't lead for others. See, whenever we think of a leader, it's always in reference to others, correct? But a leader is someone who leads themselves. Leads, period. It's like a guru. A guru doesn't go around and say, you're my shishya, you're my shishya, you're my shishya. Correct? If you're around such a guru, run. It is the shishya who makes the guru the guru. A real guru doesn't have this need to be a guru. It's a shishya who says, I want to be your disciple. When did Bhagavan Krishna begin teaching in Srimad Bhagavad Gita? When Arjuna said, Shishyaha te aham. When he said, I am your disciple, Bhagavan Krishna became the guru. Until then, cousin, charioteer. Always leads means you don't look to the side. You only look forward. During the camp, I asked you to engage in athletics. What is the difference between athletics and sports? Difference between athletics and sports. In athletics, in sports, who are you competing against? Others. It's very business-like. In athletics, who are you competing against? Yourself. It is Ernest Hemingway who has shared that nobility is not being superior to another person, it's being superior to your former self. That's exactly what yoga is. The philosophy of yoga is, tomorrow I should be happier. I should be healthier. Always lead. Engage in athletics, not sports. Last quote that we will study about being your best, which Swami Vivekananda has shared. Just to give you the right context. So you started giving the most, but there's going to be ridicule and opposition, and finally, acceptance. But in that ridicule and opposition, we sometimes become bitter. We sometimes shrink. So finally, here's how we have to live. The great secret of true success, of true happiness, is this. The man or woman who asks for no return, the perfectly unselfish person is the most successful. I shall read that again. The great secret of true success, of true happiness, is this. The man or woman who asks for no return, the perfectly unselfish person is the most successful. We'll open this up. Now that you've heard this quote, what scripture that we study in Sanatana Dharma teaches this? Pick a scripture. Srimad Bhagavad Gita. What chapter? Chapter 2. What shloka? 47. Where Bhagavan Krishna introduces Karma Yoga. Okay? You tell me. Action in your control. Sorry, let me rewind. Fruit. The fruits of your actions or results. Results are in your control or out of your control? In your control or out of your control? In your control or out of your control? See, if I look more confused, then you kind of become. I was in one place saying, how many Purusharthas do we have? And I put my hands like this, and they're like, 7! Just because I put my hands up like this doesn't make the answer change. Results are out of your control. Action. I keep saying actions. Results are in the present tense or the future tense? Present tense or future tense? Future. So out of your control and in the future. That's results. And that's why we call that phala, or fruit. You can have the perfect soil and the perfect seed and the perfect sun and the perfect water. That seed still may not grow, or it will grow on its own accord. It's not in your control, and it's definitely coming in the future. Now let's shift back to the fundamentals or action. In your control or out of your control? In your control. Present tense or future tense? Karma, if you relate this to the talk, is giving the most. It's when we give up anxiety of the future. It's giving up reciprocity. So many times I use the word volunteer, in sacred places like this, when it comes to acknowledgement, we're always looking for that acknowledgement, isn't it? That's the level of bhaja we have to get to. To just, whether people know me or don't know me, doesn't matter. We must, and Prince Arjuna is being told this, must only give ourselves to karma, to action. In this case, to being unselfish. Because this is in our control. This is now. According to sociologists, what is the two greatest fears that humans have? Fear of death and fear of public speaking. Today we tried some public speaking. And as we debriefed, I asked everyone, what were you thinking about as the speaker was speaking? And they said they were thinking about if they were going to get called. So here the speaker is speaking about whatever, but all anyone is thinking about is, I hope I don't get called. And some people are thinking, I hope I do get called. And that's why I tell people, why do you fear public speaking? Nobody listens anyways. They're thinking about themselves, what they would say, what they wouldn't say. Now, if I focus on you understanding or liking what I'm saying, I will be very distracted. That person's kind of sleeping. That person keeps talking to that person, and on and on and on. But if I just focus on the speaking, then I'll know what's in here as it comes out of here, how to intonate, how not to, etc., correct? Which creates a better fruit anyways. and I'll change this to very social media-like knowledge. When you focus on the phala, on the results, that is called FOMO. What is FOMO? The fear of missing out. Instead of focusing on what's in your control, and now, what are you focusing on? What's not in your control and is not now. Maya number 1 was created by Bhagavan Vishnu, and Maya number 2 was created by Mark Zuckerberg. And you know this, but we just don't pay enough attention to this. Now think, if you go to your Facebook wall right now, your newsfeed, the pictures of the people in your newsfeed, do they always look like that? Do they always look like they're having the best time of their life? They're so handsome and beautiful and adventurous always. Is your life always like that? Because if it is, my life is miserable. If your life is like that. Isn't it? And once you see, and we know our lives are not like that, but we don't pay attention, so we start to think, well, that person got 100 likes. My picture only got 87. And before it was just likes and dislikes. Then it became hearts, then it became the surprise face. Now you can even offer a flower. You can do bhajan through Facebook. Totally. And we just keep getting more and more lost. There's a psychological term called, I think it's called Facebook withdrawal. That if you post and not enough people like it, you start to feel lesser of yourself. That's what I'm saying, Maya number 2. FOMO. However, if you do pay attention, you focus on what's in your control, in the present, then it's not FOMO, it's JOMO, the joy of missing out. And I'll tell you the best example of JOMO is Nachiketa in Kathopanishad. Now you're thinking, where are you going from Facebook to Kathopanishad? Well, possible. First of all, the word Nachiketa means the one who doesn't collect. That is a solid name, Nachiketa. When Yamaraja, the one who controls so much, says, I can give you all of the pleasure and possession and position that you want. Singers and dancers. Nachiketa, this young boy, says, you keep your song and dance to yourself. Just give me the truth. Awesome. Jomo, not interested in song and dance. Not interested in heaven. He's going to the depth. What is the fundamentals of heaven? Of life. Here is your last always. This is your 6th always. And you already know this. What is our Balavihar motto according to Puja Swami Chinmaya? Keep smiling. Ours will just change it to always smile. Always smile. And really what that means is that you're content with what you are doing. Content with who you are. That is what Bhagavan Krishna teaches Prince Arjuna, no? Prince Arjuna has bhaya. Prince Arjuna has moha, confusion. He doesn't know who he is, so his best goes away. Then that turns or ferments into bhaya, fear. He wants to run. And finally that ferments to shoka. He can't even run. He puts his bow down and sits down and says, I'm not going to speak. How quickly confidence turned into being despondent. And Bhagavan Krishna says, focus on what's in your control now. And through that, he starts to smile. End of Bhagavad Gita, he's the best. He goes from being your best to being the best. And we see it all the time. That's why I keep telling you, you know this. I think I saw in this ashram, Bhagavan, I think it's in the Acharya room, a picture of Bhagavan Rama's family picture. You've all seen Bhagwan Rama's family picture. How is Bhagwan Rama standing? Show me. Completely straight, correct? Bow in hand also. Godanda Rama. It's his family picture. He still has his profession there. And if you've seen Bhagwan Krishna, and the same room I'm staying in, there's a baby Krishna there. How does Bhagwan Krishna stand? Every part of him is curved. His feet and knees and waist and fingers and neck and smile and feather. And what Bhagwan Rama, but what unites both of them is, both of them are smiling. Bhagwan Rama came as Manava and lived like a prince, and he went through a lot of challenges, but smiled. Bhagwan Krishna came as Ishvara, lived like a prisoner. He was literally shuttled from place to place to place to place. And he was constantly smiling. When you look at an icon, I told all of you already, you shouldn't see the icon with your eyes. Look with your intellect. See yourself as that icon. Always smile. Puja Swami Vivekananda brought Vedanta to the West. What does Veda mean? Knowledge. And Antaha? And is a very technical meaning. What does Andar mean? Antaha also means inside. Vedanta is the knowledge of what's inside. The knowledge of who you are. And he brought it to the West. He came and faced extreme challenge to introduce people to who they are. And why we chose him as the icon for this camp, for this talk. He came and discharged this message. And our Puja Swami Vivekananda, who many say is an incarnation of Puja Swami Vivekananda, he came and gave people books with that message. So Puja Swami Vivekananda came with the message, but he didn't come with any brochures for you to look at what's being offered. Gurudev came with scriptures and gave it to people. It's amazing that he wrote hundreds of books. We can't even read hundreds of books, and he wrote hundreds of books. If you've ever tried writing a book, it's so difficult to find time to do it. He brought Vedanta to the West, and that's why through this camp, through this talk, we offer our homage to him, and through him to our Puja Swami Chinmaya also. Puja Swami Vivekananda loved working with the youth. And that's why in 1984, January 12th was decided in Bharat to be National Youth Day. It was decided in 84, and in 85 it began. January 12th, that was the day his body was born. National Youth Day. He loved working with youth. Fascinatingly, his body died on July 4th, which is Independence Day, no? National Youth Day to Independence Day. How should we end our bodies? Being independent of our bodies. That same Raja Parikshita, when he was bit by Takshaka, the most poisonous creature, he didn't know he got bit. He didn't know he died. Because he was so much more than just the body. You only live once, is making the most. To always learn, to always exercise, and to always commit. Being your best is to give the most. And we said we should always remember, and I'll add a tactile element to this. wherever you sleep, you should have an altar in that room. If you travel, you should travel with an altar. When you go away to school, you should have an altar there. If you're staying with family in whatever place, the first practice you should have, and I do this also, is I clean off a table. Even though the places are clean, I clean it again and I set up my altar. That's why I'm there. To remember, you stay strong. You forget, you become weak. Have an altar. Always lead. To become the best public speaker, what do you have to first become? The best listener. The best leaders are the ones who listen. Bhagwan Rama used to go out to his kingdom and listen to what people are saying. Be a listener. Okay? And then we said, always smile. And a very tactful way to do this is, in that same reflection guide that I talked about, you should also have a section on gratitude. You start a gratitude guide. That every night or every morning, whenever time you find, write down a reason that you have to smile. And when I shared this in one place, this young man shared so thoughtfully, he said, I'm grateful for corrective lenses. You know, for all of those who wear glasses or contacts, if we didn't have these, we wouldn't be able to drive. My younger sister also had a baby, so my niece is 25 days younger than Vyasa, and she was told not to drive for 6 weeks, and that, you know, for someone who's in the corporate world, to not drive for 6 weeks, that shakes you. If we didn't have glasses, none of us would be able to drive. You'd hug people you shouldn't be hugging. You know, what a thoughtful young man that I am smiling because I can see. And you can go on and on and on with that. Then it's easy to smile, correct? There's more reasons to smile then than to not smile. Final thought. A young man from Jaipur was given a job in Boston. What company? Whatever company you work for, that's the company he got a job in. But because of the change in the government, he had lost his visa status. Before, when he had that job, his parents said, you know, you're leaving Jaipur, so you should have an altar. And so they gave him an altar with Bhagwan Ganesha there. That was the icon. And they said every day, offer puja to Bhagwan Ganesha. And he did. He was in a new country, new city. He wanted to feel comfortable. So every day he would offer puja to Bhagwan Ganesha. And when his visa status changed, he offered even more puja then. You know, more naivedya, more incense, more of everything. But he just couldn't find another job. That visa was still lost. And each day became more frustrated, more angry. So one day he's looking at Bhagwan Ganesha and said, I don't think you're strong enough to fulfill my prayers. I'm going to bring in your boss. So that day he went to a puja shop somewhere, I think it was in Andover. And he went and bought a murti of Bhagwan Shiva. He had Bhagwan Shiva and he showed Bhagwan Ganesha, your father is here now. So he moved Bhagwan Ganesha to the corner and he set up Bhagwan Shiva. And so again, he's offering his puja. When it came to offering dhupa, incense, he's waving the agarbatti, and the smoke, the scent from the incense is going to Bhagwan Ganesha. So he kind of cups his hand to direct that. It's still through his fingers. So he moves his body, you know, as a barrier. And he gets extremely agitated that all of this incense is going to Bhagwan Ganesha. So he goes to his bathroom, finds some cotton, takes it and sticks it in the trunk of Bhagwan Ganesha. That's not for you, that's for your father. And then he comes back to where Bhagwan Shiva is, and Bhagwan Ganesha is waiting for him. And Bhagwan Ganesha became manifest. And that boy was stunned. I'm worshipping Bhagavan Shiva. I've worshipped you for so long and you never came and now you're here. Why? And Bhagavan Ganesha said, today you started believing in me. Until today you never believed I was real. And when you saw that incense go into my trunk, you started to believe that I'm real. Puja Swami Vivekananda said, the only atheist is the one who does not believe in themselves. All that I've shared with you, these alwayses, these tactile points, if you don't believe, if you don't try, it's like mechanically worshipping Bhagavan Ganesha. But if we believe, if we try, he will come. History has shown that, the future will also show that. I've purposefully ended this discourse 20 minutes early because I have observed that there's a lot of young people here. We have 70 youth who have registered for our camp, which is great. I'm amazed and appreciate all of the youth that are here. And you may not know this, more than 50% have no association with Chinmaya Mission. That's the more amazing part, is that they've stepped outside of their comfort zone to be part of this youth camp. We've never met each other before, and here they are. I've observed that as we become more isolated, that communication between generations is also growing. And I thought, what an ideal forum where we have two generations and lots of people from two generations, not just a few. It's not like we're at home with just our family. Lots of people here. And so I thought for the last 20 minutes we can make this an open forum where you can complain about your kids and your kids can complain about you. But more specifically, that if there are any questions you have about this camp, about your family, about life, that you can ask, and if it's an adult question and your children happen to hear it, that could be very meaningful, and vice versa. So many homes I go to, the parents tell me, our kids are like this, you should tell them this. And I meet them and I say, I'm going to tell you this, and you're going to listen to me, because I'm not your parent. And they're like, yes, yes. Their parents say it? No, no. Anyone else says it? Yes, yes. So we have two mics in the corners here. This is an open forum. The recording is already stopped when I chanted Om. This is a free forum